next leadership move is to eliminate both fear and comfort. The reason this is important is that learning is central to any lean journey, both an individual journey and a collective lean journey. And both fear and comfort are the enemies of that. The model that we use for this, if we understand our comfort zone, where we often are. And in our comfort zone, that's the stuff we already know. Learning doesn't occur in the comfort zone. So we have to get outside our comfort zone for learning to occur. That's where everything becomes more clear. But if we get too far outside our comfort zone, that's where fear starts to set in. Now the question is, whether it's for yourself or your organization or your team, how wide the band is between comfort and fear. Essentially, how much room have you allowed to create learning? So our job as leaders is to eliminate both fear and comfort. So we start by looking at how do we push out the fear boundaries? How do we make more room for learning by eliminating fear? Well, the countermeasure to fear is safety. And there's 3 types of safety that we can understand. The first is physical. As an example of this, when aircraft were really first used for commercial uses, one of the very prominent uses was to carry mail. But the accident rate was very, very high. Planes would stall and the pilots did not know how to recover them. And so a particular engineer developed the very first flight simulator. Now that created opportunities for pilots to get into stall situations while still being safe. Their learning increased and safety increased dramatically because they made learning safe. They pushed out that fear boundary. The second type of safety is emotional. And this is where the leader's job is perhaps particularly important. If someone comes up with an interesting idea and just proposes an idea, and someone else in the room says, well, that's a dumb idea. Well, the next time, that person doesn't want to propose anything new. New ideas get squashed because emotional safety is not present. The leader's job is to provide that emotional safety. And the third kind is professional safety, meaning we may not lose our job, but are there consequences to experiments that don't work? Fundamentally, we have to experiment to create learning. If we don't know the answer, then it is going to be an experiment. But if an experiment has a bad outcome and there's automatically professional consequences, the message is pretty clear. Don't experiment, and therefore don't learn. So we have to make it okay for experimentation. Experimentation, first thing we can do is lower the risk. Find ways to make experimentation safer. Don't test something out on your biggest client. Test it out on a smaller client first. Find ways to reduce the risk. And the second is setting boundary conditions. Helping someone understand where they can experiment. If I don't know where I can experiment and where I can't, if I don't know the size of my box, I'm most likely going to imagine that box is smaller because that's the safe thing to do. So by providing clarity of boundary conditions, we actually often provide more room for people to experiment. The other way to increase room for learning is to shrink the comfort zone. Get people out of that comfort zone. That is done primarily by pushing people into new challenges. This could be forced discomfort of some kind, a new role, a tough challenge. When you ask somebody to improve their cycle time, that's one thing. If you ask them to cut it in half, they may have no idea how to do that. Just thinking about that challenge makes it uncomfortable, makes it pursue the approach in a different way, and that's where the learning is going to come in. And fundamentally, creating a culture of expected experimentation. If someone's really good at their job, but they don't try new things, they don't try to get better, then in the right culture, that shouldn't be okay. It's not about how well you perform today, it's about the pursuit of performing better tomorrow. Now, not every experiment has to succeed to do that, but staying put where you are has to be unacceptable. Now, you also should practice self-hacking. How do you put yourself into this mode? Right? For example, I always sought mentors as a very deliberate way to shrink my comfort zone. In fact, when I went through graduate school or after graduate school, I actually formed an advisory board, a personal advisory board. I got together 4 or 5 people that I knew would challenge my thinking, challenge my approach, and I would regularly present them with the situations that I'm in because they would shrink my comfort zone and make me think about it harder. The other way is to look at a forced habit. So if you can force yourself into a new habit, that puts you out of your comfort zone into a learning zone. That can be a great way to self-hack. For example, in my entrepreneurial pursuits, I forced myself every month to come up with a new idea. Now, 9 out of 12 times that was not worth pursuing. 2 out of 12 times it was worth pursuing but didn't end up going anywhere. And maybe 1 in 12 would have some merit. But that forced habit created learning opportunities for me because each time I tried that, I learned a little something more because I was outside my comfort zone. Both for themselves and for the organization, a leader's job is to eliminate both fear and comfort because both of them are enemies of learning. And lean, after all, is a learning journey.